Hello there, folks. I have absolutely no idea what Tim Montgomery has been smoking, but it's fair to say his perception of reality is rather skew-if. The subject of Rishi Sunak's 5 pledges was being discussed on Newsnight, and the concept of the whiteboard on your screen is fairly straightforward. Each guest will produce a card on their own line for each individual pledge. A green card means Sunak will meet the pledge. A red card means Sunak will miss the pledge. We will start with Fraser Nelson from The Spectator. So let's take a look.
Let's talk to our Newsnight panel about what goals are achievable, and if they're not, then what. Fraser Nelson is editor of The Spectator magazine. Tim Montgomery was special advisor to Prime Minister Boris Johnson in 2019 and founded the Conservative Home website. And Aisha Hazarika is a former political advisor to the Labour Party and now presents on Times Radio. So, Fraser, with the 5 pledges, is he going to reach them? Is he going to fail?
Well, let's start with halving inflation. When he made the pledge, it looked achievable, but it was forecast to be 3% and needs it to be 5.5%. But now the wind is blowing the wrong way. It looks like he's going to miss that pledge of halving inflation. Now, but he said it'd grow the economy. Now, it's a rare Prime Minister who doesn't grow the economy at some point. People take that to mean serious growth, noticeable growth. Instead, we're seeing incomes, real incomes, decline at the fastest rate for decades, and we're going to notice instead gossamer growth that's not really worthy of the name.
So like 0.1%?
Something like that. It will not feel like growth. So this will be even if it's technically hit, it will feel to voters, will come the election as a promise that was not kept. Now, with debt falling, it was never going to fall. It was very disingenuous of him to pretend otherwise.
Why did he say it then?
Well, because when he said falling, what he meant was rising, but not quite as fast as the economy. In other words, the ratio will be falling. But even the ratio is destined to go up this year, next year. The official forecasts show that however you want to define it, this pledge is going to be failed as well. Now, then there's waiting lists. It seemed in October that they were stagnating a bit. He looked as if, because right now the NHS has been given huge orders, meet the pledge, get the waiting lists down, but the doctors' strikes have made that harder to achieve. The waiting lists are now going up. So compared to when he made the pledge, I think we're going to see waiting lists up as well. Therefore, the pledge failed. Now, that leaves us with the most audacious pledge to stop, in his words, these small boats. Now, I reckon that might have been, at a push, achievable had he got the Rwanda plan going up. We saw when he started the Albanian deportations, arrivals from Albania, which were half of the total at one point, fell off a cliff, down by 99%. But now the courts have found against his Rwanda plan. It doesn't look like that's going to change until next year. Therefore, when it comes to stopping the small boats, another fail. So 5 pledges, and I'm afraid to say it looks right now like 5 failures.
Thank you very much, Fraser. Let's do a little swap with Tim. Tim, OK, where are you on the pledges then?
Well, after all that gloom, I'm going to try and be a little bit more optimistic. And, yeah, we've had a bad first 6 months on inflation, but the consensus of forecasts is that we should just about hit Rishi Sunak's target on halving inflation.
Which means prices are still rising, but not as fast.
But not as fast as they have been. Whether that will feel, Fraser's general point about whether it feels for voters that things have changed, that's another question. But technically, I think he will hit the target. I also think he'll hit the target on the economy growing.
Meaningful growth?
Not meaningful growth, but unlike a lot of economies on the continent, we've avoided a recession. That's not nothing. And I think Rishi Sunak will be able to bag that. Partly because of something that really annoys Tory MPs, the increase in income tax thresholds. There's enough contribution into the exchequer to allow him to technically say that he's hit the debt target.
Technically,
all
a lot of heavy lifting.
Even though I'm giving him green on all of these 5 things, whether the people will feel that the competence of the Tory party has been recovered, which was what the basic intention of these was, to show that the Conservative Party could actually deliver things. That's another question. But on actually whether he can say by the letter of the pledge he's met them, I think he'll also be able to do that on waiting lists. But it'll be more about reducing the very long waiting list rather than the number of people on waiting lists altogether. This is the most controversial one. He won't stop the small boats, but he will reduce the total number, I think, coming across the channel.
The promise was to stop the boats.
It was in the speech, but if you watched the speech at the time in the new year, journalist after journalist, after he spoke, sought clarification, and he then would only sort of say, reducing the number.
Fair enough, thank you. But he did say stop the boats twice in that speech, because I've looked at it again today. Thank you. Right, Aisha, do come in. So where are you on these 5 pledges?
Not great news. I'm actually in a lot of agreement with Fraser Nelson from The Spectator, which is quite an odd thing for me to be in, but life comes at you fast. Having inflation, I think that is hugely problematic, because inflation is proving way more sticky than he first thought. We don't know what's happening with the geopolitical situation, and while energy prices might come down, food prices are still really, really high, and there is this lag between inflation going down and people feeling it. So I think that's going to be a fail. Because inflation is so high, interest rates have had to go up. This is going to really harm the economy. In order to cool down the economy, which is what the Bank of England has had to do by putting interest rates up, there could even be a recession. So this is not going to just be really difficult for all of us. It's going to be particularly difficult for businesses as well. And of course, related to the economy, debt falling, it's absolutely not going to fall. As Fraser said, it's already had to go up for some very worthy causes, including furlough. When Rishi Sunak was Chancellor, they've just had to put some more money into the NHS. But that means that debt is going up. The interest is going up to service the debt. So there's absolutely no way that the debt's going to fall. Waiting lists, next to the cost of living crisis, NHS waiting lists are sort of the number 2 issue for most people around the country. And while some good work has gone into this NHS workforce plan, it's like putting water into a bath and you haven't got the plug in it. There's so many people leaving the NHS strike. So I think all of that's going to have a huge problem for waiting lists. And finally, stop the small boats. I mean, I disagree with Tim. I agree with you. I think he made stopping the small boats the central plank. That's what people remember. That is not happening. We're just in the beginning of summer. The numbers are getting higher and higher.
OK. Take a seat. Thank you very much.
Even by the low standards of Tim Montgomery, this has to be some kind of sick joke. He gives all 5 pledges a green, but they all have some kind of disclaimer or terms and conditions attached. The most amusing being the boats, of course. He won't stop the boats, but he'll reduce the boats, so that gets a green for stopping the boats. Are you crazy? Hospital waiting lists. Oh, well, they won't go down overall, but the longest waiting people will go down. Green. Probably because they were waiting so long, they're now dead. The economy hasn't grown, probably won't grow, but we've avoided recession. Green! Doesn't this just sum up Tory Britain? 5 pledges by the Prime Minister. 5 pledges, in all likelihood, he's not going to come close to meeting. Yet, on the BBC, you've still got some sicko coming on and basically confessing he's not going to come close to hitting any of those pledges, but gives him the green on all 5 anyway. And to sum up how stupid this country is now, the balance is 2 Tories to 1 here, right? But the Tories are so crap, even Fraser Nelson can't defend them. So for even further balance, they've had to call up Tim Montgomery and say, listen, mate, we need some idiot to come on Newsnight and defend the indefensible. You up for it? Because Fraser Nelson's not prepared to do so. You can come? Perfect. All right, cheers, mate. See you later. Bye. Sorry, what's that? No, you don't need to dress up. Wear your usual rags. All right, yeah, bye. Still, at least there was a vaguely amusing moment towards the end of the segment when Aisha Hazarika roasted Tim Montgomery's whiteboard performance. Let's have a quick look at that.
OK, final question to all of you. Who's going to win the next general election?
The Labour Party with Keir Starmer in a majority government. But hopefully Tim will get a peerage for that stunning performance he put in today in the resignation honours.
Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you've made it this far, and I'll catch you again soon.